Michigan plays Alabama for the second time in a one-year period. January 1st to December 31st, 366 days thanks to the leap year. Nonetheless, we are going to talk about the selection of Michigan going to the ReliaQuest Bowl, as well as Chase Herbstreit committing to the Wolverines. Yes, that Herbstreit family. And the transfer portal opening on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
As I'm adjusting my door. Happy Monday. We're back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Holt, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Let's start off with the bowl game. It's obviously not a great matchup for Michigan, but I think it all is going to depend on who's going to play here. But the ReliaQuest Bowl, if you're living under a rock, Michigan will play Alabama, a team that thought it was going to the playoff despite losing twice to unranked teams, one of which was a blowout loss. They had 3 losses on the season. They feel very entitled to their playoff, and they're very upset that teams that lost less get to go, unlike them. But they are going to be facing off at Raymond James Stadium in what used to be considered the Outback Bowl. It is now the ReliaQuest Bowl. I, for one, am excited because that means I get to be warm for a week and I get to do what I seem to do every year right after the bowl game and go to some Disney park. This is long-standing, man. It's kind of wild because it started in 2019 when Anthony Broom, Von 3, and I went during the Citrus Bowl to Disney because we were like, we want to see the Star Wars thing, and then it's become a thing. And shout out to my guy Luke DeMello, who works at Disney World. But we're going back to Florida, and I'm honestly very, very excited about that. And but is this a good matchup for Michigan? It's going to depend because Kalen DeBoer talked about how he doesn't think there's going to be a lot of guys sitting for this. I think that we'll see because we're seeing multiple guys go into the transfer portal for them, not necessarily big name players, but they lost a couple receivers to the transfer portal. I think a lineman has gone in. A lot of names I'm not necessarily recognizing, but then you're going to have guys that are going to go to the draft and things, but then you still have to contend with like Ryan Williams and who's very good, but Zeke Berry, who you would expect to play in this game, did an incredible job, as did Amir Hall, who again I would also expect to play in this game. Did incredible jobs on the Ohio State receivers. So certainly Michigan will have some personnel, but here's the thing, and here's why I want to talk about this. If you are looking at this game in the way you should, and if Sharon Moore does what I think he will do based off of kind of what he said on Wednesday at the signing day, he said, anyone who wants to play in the bowl game will have that opportunity. Now that could be interpreted in a couple different ways. That could be interpreted as like, you've got an opportunity to earn the right to play in the bowl game, or it could be like, you want to get in, we're going to get you in. If I'm Sharon Moore, I'm treating this as early spring game. And I'm trying to get as many guys that you already have on the roster that you are eyeing for either starting roles or being in rotation. I want to get those guys in now. I want to try to get guys like Jaden Davis in to face some live bullets as well, just to see what you've got. I'm treating this less like a typical game and walking out and saying like, yay, we're 8-5, which would be pretty big to be honest, but more so, what do we got? Let's get a jump on everything, right? Like in not spring ball, but in bowl prep, I would be giving Bryce Underwood as many opportunities as possible. Get him acclimated. There's no point really in preparing for this like a typical game, number one. That said, that doesn't mean you can't win it. I would just say like it's probably unlikely because Alabama's probably not going to be taking that same mindset, okay? They're going to be trying to prove that they belonged in the college football playoff, almost certainly. But, I mean, still, there's some of these defensive players and everybody that can certainly make it a game. I'm just more kind of, concerned about the offense. What does the Michigan offense look like against the Alabama defense? And so just kind of take that out of the equation and just be like, we're just going to try a bunch of stuff, right? We're just going to mess around in a way. And some things are going to work and some things aren't. I wouldn't treat it like the Ohio State game where it's like, okay, we've got to be methodical and we have our game plan. I mean, they're going to have their game plan, but the game plan should just essentially be the Costanza of game plans, like the no game plan. That's what I would do. So regardless, I would not take this game and look at it in the way that you would normally look at a bowl game. I would count this as a loss now. If they somehow win, then cool. But I wouldn't be surprised either if it kind of ended up looking like the Florida game in 2007, or I guess January 1, 2008. Just because Michigan would be letting it loose. That's different. Michigan had a heck of a lot more talent and was certainly trying to win that game. That's what I'm kind of hoping, and I'm kind of thinking that's what we are going to see from Michigan in this one. I don't think it's necessarily going to be your typical high flying, what have you, right? And we're going to know a little bit about that, I guess, as I say that right now, tomorrow, because we'll actually get a chance to speak with Sharon more tomorrow night to learn more about what his strategy is. But again, I just want to caution you not to look at this as like, we win, then we're on the right track. If we lose, then we're on the wrong track. Obviously, there's a lot of things that have to happen and change for this team. And you're seeing that with the transfer portal. We're going to get into the transfer portal in a moment, first addressing the losses before we talk about some people. There aren't like a ton of names that we're going to know yet. And that's fine. But I think that this is a game where you can absolutely just try to figure out who should be a part of the rotation next year. And I mean, it's a long time, but this is where you can really build a team right now. Because if you're not just looking at it as we have to win this game to advance to another game or something like that, you're kind of more so able to say, like, we've got 15 practices now. We've got 15 practices in spring. Then we've got 15 practices or 20 or whatever in fall. That's a lot of time to get some guys that maybe haven't, that you're like looking at, like a Josiah Edmond or, a Jordan Marshall, those types of guys, and say, like, you're about to get a heck of a lot of opportunity that you weren't necessarily going to have beforehand to try to get in the game. So I would, for anyone who's departing, I would be like, you can absolutely play if you want to. It's your last opportunity to play in maize and blue and wear the winged helmet. You can absolutely be a part of this, but understand that our goal here is to get guys ready for the next year, because that's just invaluable in a way that a win in this game isn't going to be. Okay, so that's how I would be looking at it if I'm Sharon Moore. Let's get to the transfer portal. There's been a lot more entries. We've talked about some of them over the course of some time here. But what do I expect Michigan to kind of go after? And that's not necessarily going to be names. It's going to be a type. So we'll get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite, and right now you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Steaks.com, not states. We're not talking about Omaha State University. Plus, score an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more, stay 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. All right, we're going to continue on here in just a moment, but before we do, you'll notice that if you're watching on YouTube, you can't see this if you're listening, and I'm sorry about that, but behind me, I have this beautiful LED display. It's got a block M, and it's showing, like right now, it's showing the women's basketball schedule. It's a team ticker. Team ticker is a one-of-a-kind sports sign for college sports fans. Team ticker is a 1.5 by 2-foot wall sign featuring the block M logo that has a cool retro-looking LED display. The display is updated daily with fresh content, such as a countdown to the next game, schedule, standing stats, and news. It's super fun and a great way to stay connected with Michigan Wolverines sports. It's a combination of design and function that gives you an entertaining, creative way to display your team pride while providing a unique connection to your favorite team. Whether it's football, men's, women's basketball, baseball, soccer, softball, Team Ticker has got you covered. Never miss a game as the high-tech retro display provides a countdown to the next big game, as well as daily updates of the latest team news, stats, schedules, standings, and much more. Each sign is officially licensed, meeting high-quality standards, and is assembled by hand in the U.S. So Team Ticker is an ultimate addition to your Michigan Wolverines sports collection. Once you hang it on your wall, it's going to be the talk of all your fellow Michigan fans. If you're looking for that one eye-catching item to showcase your team pride or a gift for that special Wolverines fan, go to teamticker.com and pick up your Team Ticker today. So again, remember, go to teamticker.com, and because Team Ticker is a one-of-a-kind sports sign, and right now they're running a $50 off holiday sale. Go to teamticker.com to take advantage of the holiday sale now and get $50 off your Team Ticker purchase. All right, transfer portal. Oops, I forgot I need some of the energy juice. Transfer portal is officially open as of this morning. We've seen a lot of entrants from Michigan. I'm expecting that we'll see more. I don't have any names in mind. It's just kind of the way of the world works. We're definitely going to see more guys enter as the Wolverines try to overhaul. And you just hope that you don't lose anybody that you're 100% counting on. I think they kind of did that with by losing Andrew Gentry this morning. You're obviously disappointed that you lose Tommy Doman. You lose the starter in Tyler Morris. But let's face it, this is also a team that needs to be retooled in a lot of ways. So it is disappointing when you see guys leave. I mean, they've lost those guys, Tavier Dunlap, Raheem Anderson, some guys that had a lot of, like Raheem's a guy that had a lot of promise. We thought multiple times throughout the years that he was going to earn that starting center spot or even a starting guard spot, and it just didn't work out that way. Wouldn't be surprised to see the quarterback room thin out a little bit, so you're going to have to do some things. That's going to bring us to Chase Herbstreit here in a minute, but they're going to need bodies at different places, and obviously losing who you've lost on the defensive line, the Dom Judice leaving, another guy who started games. You're going to need a little bit more maybe at center, right? You've got Greg Crippen, Jake Guarnera behind him. So it's going to be, and obviously you're bringing in Caden Strayhorn. So it's a matter of development on top of everything. But you can roll with Crippen, but you better hope everything's good there because you've got a lot of inexperience behind him, right? And Sharon definitely is a guy who prioritizes center and understanding the importance of that position. So, I do think that just based off of some conversations I had, I don't think it's necessarily going to be Michigan out there making it rain, right? Like, I don't think that's going to necessarily be what it is. Like, will they spend money? Absolutely. Will they get some big names? I do think that we'll see a few, but it's going to continue to be more about fit, right? Like, there are guys who will be NIL guys, right? Like, that's absolutely true, but it is still a culture thing. They don't always stay 100% with the culture thing, I don't believe. But it's like they're not just going to be like, well, you know, like, for instance, I don't expect them to go for, this is how do I say this without getting myself into trouble? Let me put it this way. If a guy left a team early last year to transfer, obviously they're in it with Donovan McCulley, who did that with Indiana. They still might take him, but I think that's going to preclude a lot of people. It's going to depend on, like, okay, did that happen, but are you a culture fit? I think is the best way for me to put that. Right? They're not just going to take any single person out there that is like, yeah, man, you're talented. You know, if you come with baggage and all of these things, and I'm not saying that this is who he is, but like the first name that comes to mind is Bear Alexander, you know, or like the UNLV quarterback, right? Like, to me, it's like that I think is going to be precluded a little bit from what Michigan's trying to do in the transfer portal. So they're still going to be looking for guys who are fits, that are culture fits, is basically what I'm trying to say. And if you're a guy who quit on your team, if that's what it is. Now, it's another thing if you were told, like, hey, your playing time is just not going to be here, right? Like, and that's a difference. That's why I'm trying to say, like, not trying to watch my words to make it sound like I'm not saying that about Donovan McCulley, right? Like, I don't know what he was told. But if you are a guy that more so was like all about me rather than about the team, I don't think that that's going to work, right? They're not just going to be like, we need to go out and be spenders and get you just to kind of pull this together, right? This isn't going to be a ragtag group. They still want to be a team. They still want to have everyone pulling in the same direction. Sharon was around 2018 through 2020, as well as the last 4 years. So he's seen what it looks like when not everyone's pulling in the same direction, and he's seen what it looks like when everyone is. And you can even see last year, this year rather, at the end, everyone was still pulling in the same direction, even though things weren't necessarily working out on the field until very, very late. So I do expect them to be smart about it, and some of the guys are going to go after. Now they are going to be hosting that Bryce Marich. Nope, I can't ever remember this kid's last name. There's too many Bryces. But the quarterback from Mississippi State, Josh Thompson from right here in Fenton, Michigan, he's going to be visiting after, I think, next week after he's doing some of these other visits. He's going to go to MSU and Ohio State and whatever. That's just the start of it. This is going to pick up, and we're going to be talking a lot about these transfer portal options. And visits don't equal commitments, of course, but I would expect Michigan to be selective, but also like they're going to need a lot of guys. Because you have to keep in mind, and this is where we're going to change here to talk about Chase Herbstreit. The numbers are interesting because they need to get down as far as the roster size, because they've got like 135 guys. Now you got to get down to 105 because everyone's a scholarship guy. But before, they used to only have 85 scholarships. So you're kind of looking at a situation where it's like the type of numbers you used to have plus like 7 preferred walk-on types per year. And that's just kind of where like Chase Herbstreit fits in, right? Like he'd be one of those guys. By the way, I think it's also hilarious. Everything is just hilarious right now. Chase Herbstreit, son of Kirk Herbstreit, hasn't put a lot on tape, threw for 1,500 yards last year. Ends up, he camped at Michigan at a point last year. Ends up being a scholarship take for the 2025 class, ranked only by On3 as a 3-star. And I can't really speak to his prowess because he wasn't ranked by anybody and all of that. But I love taking a guy that's Kirk Herbstreit's son. If we can get a go blue from Kirk Herbstreit, that's awesome. It just feels like another shot over the bow. Now, that's not why they should be taking recruits. To me, this feels a little bit like how they took Zach Ludwig, right? Like out of, it's like Ben Herbert's nephew. But there's going to have an opportunity. That's the great thing, right? Like as much as it's like, don't take a guy like that. I mean, we've seen people that, I mean, names aren't coming to mind, so it might be fictional names in my imagination, but we've seen times where it's like, that guy's never going to play. And then they do. Dom Judice never would have felt like a loss at the time that he committed because it just, when Michigan accepted it, it was like, that guy's never going to play. Josh Metellus was a guy that when they accepted his commitment as a 2-star, it's like, that guy's never going to play. Ronnie Bell, when he committed, Kwity Paye, these were guys that people were like, that guy's never going to play. So who knows? We'll see. He's got to have an opportunity, and we'll see what he makes of it. I mean, is he going to play over Bryce? Probably not, but they need numbers, certainly in the quarterback room, because I think that might go down a little bit once we get past the bowl game or around the bowl game. Disappointing for some because the transfer portal doesn't open, or it closes before the bowl game, and it opens again in the spring. So it'll be interesting to see what happens between now and then. All right, let's continue on here in just a moment. But before we do, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. And make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I think I ran segments 2 and 3 together. Because I was like, What was it? We were gonna do. Okay. Sometimes I rush things. It's been a difficult weekend. Some family stuff going on. So excuse me if I'm not as on my game as I normally might be. Anyway, let's continue to look forward then, since I think I took my segment 3 and truncated it into segment 2 to some degree. I think that this is an exciting time to be a Michigan fan for multiple reasons. Number one, obviously, the future looks extremely bright. Now we need to see more of what's going to happen. Let's talk a little bit about the offensive coordinator of it all. I saw on some message boards that people were freaking out because I said, I personally don't want Jason Candle, and I have a reason. It's not a scandal. I just want to clarify, because I saw like people on the message boards being like, uh-oh. It's not a scandal. It's a preference based off of something I know. And if it honestly, if it ends up being Jason Candle, that's fine, right? Like, it's not going to affect things that much, the thing that I'm talking about. No, it will never come out if he becomes the offensive coordinator. But it's not that big of a deal. It's just you know, like, there's people that have preferences, right? They look at like the different candidates and they say, oh, I don't really like Joe Craddock because he had a couple bad years at Arkansas, that type of thing, right? I don't want Chip Lindsey because he did some things that just aren't necessarily, like, you know, maybe the offense could have been a little bit better. Drake, you know, when he had Drake May or something like that, right? Like, there's different things that people could look at and kind of have their objections. That's what it is for me with Jason Candle. That said, I still think he would be an excellent offensive coordinator. It's a very minor dispute that I have, essentially. But now we're starting to get into some names here that it kind of feels like it's dwindling down. We're not hearing, it's been kind of all quiet on the Western Front. I haven't heard anything from my sources, but in large part that's because the sources I would talk to on a game day. Haven't had a game day. So, it'll be interesting to see, kind of who ends up being in this, but just kind of reading the tea leaves, it feels like this is, Jason Candle, Joe Craddock, Chip Lindsey, Dan Mullen doesn't seem like his name is really out there anymore. I feel like that would have happened if it was just really the choice. But again, that was a name that was floated towards the Bryce Underwood camp, as was Byron Leftwich. I just haven't really heard anything about those guys since. So it'll be interesting to see. Tanner Engstrand's being discussed at this point, which that's an intriguing name, but I don't think it's a good idea to wait until potentially mid to late February to get your OC, right? Like, they could be literally starting spring ball. So that becomes problematic. Forgot to close my email account. Not account, just my client. It makes noise. I had to read one of the things from it. So I think that there's a lot of options there, but future's bright because as I was discussing this with someone close to the Michigan side of things, having an offensive minded head coach, you're more so looking for someone that can execute the scheme that you're hoping. And to some degree, I mean, like, that didn't necessarily work out this year. Some of that, you know, some of it might have been Campbell, some of it certainly personnel and all of that. But I don't think that you necessarily need to rush to get somebody, as long because, number one, Sharon can sell his vision. Obviously, you know, you've got Bryce Underwood. It's just going to be a thing, at least, where it's like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make it look like this with Bryce Underwood. That's more the selling point than the OC. And it's about getting an OC that's going to come in and conform to that. And with that in mind, I think that Sharon, you know, is in a good spot because he can, you know, like, while we want him to be like the CEO type, he can kind of take his time and make sure he can get the right guy. Now, not everyone, you know, some have more experience than others. Chip Lindsey out of UNC was a multi-year head coach at Troy. You know, he's been in the South for a lot of time. He's got a lot of experience. He's only 5 years older than I am, a little bit older than Sharon. You look at Tanner Engstrand, he's been at Michigan, now with the Detroit Lions, but he could be in line, right? For Ben Johnson leaves, he could be the new offensive coordinator there. He's currently the Lions pass game coordinator. but he was an analyst at Michigan in 2018. Craddock is one that I absolutely love when I look at his resume and I look at like his philosophy. Currently at Tulane, was at Troy before that, and at I kind of had some learning experiences in the end of the Chad Morris era for him when he was at Arkansas. So there's a lot where you kind of try to pare things down in terms of like what did they do well, what did they not. And you know what? At this point, it's like, just take your time and make sure you get the right choice. It might not be a choice that everyone's going to go nuts over, and that's kind of fine. Everyone went nuts over Josh Gaddis at the time. Okay? You just need to it doesn't need to be flashy. It really doesn't. Because if all things work well, it's not that the offense itself, like the scheme, needs to be flashy. You need Bryce Underwood to be flashy. And I think that they'll find a way to get that done in terms of finding the right guy. And there's no rush. So it wouldn't surprise me if this doesn't happen until after the bowl game. Maybe it does. Maybe it happens 5 minutes after as we end this podcast. Who knows? But from my understanding that Sharon said he's going to take his time, it's kind of feeling like that is maybe an accurate assessment. All right, so we will talk to you tomorrow on Tuesday as we continue to look into the transfer portal, prepare to go to Tampa. I'm super excited about it. I think given a season like Michigan's had, this is a great scenario. Getting to play Alabama again. I mean, it's funny. Everyone was like, just not Florida. Michigan hasn't played Florida in 6 years. Everyone's like, not Florida. And this will be the third time Michigan's played Alabama in a 5-year period. Second time in 1 year. I'm all about it, though. Why is that? It's just no one cares about Florida. Sorry, Uncle Donnie. All right, we'll talk to you again soon. Peace.